Chapter 3105. To the generals and soldiers, Chen Chongqing's expression changed. The great general was their spiritual pillar. From defending Valley Wind City till now, they had never seen the great general lowering his head. Even if it was the people from secluded palace who made use of those monsters to attack the city, the great general had always held his head high and never retreated. Even when facing the sect master of Valley Wind sect, the great general had never lowered his head. This was the first time they saw. The great general had lost his composure. Plop. Dong. After the days, one after another, the soldiers followed their great general and knelt down. No matter what the reason was for the great general to lose his composure. As long as the great general felt that it was right. They felt that it was right. Not long later, there were 20 over people kneeling on the city walls. The great general's kneeling. It also made Yiqing Luo and the rest dumbfounded. Yiqing Luo kept the enchanting smile on her lips as she coughed lightly. "Great general, please get up first." The great general raised his head as his eyes turned red and his muscles were all tensed up. "Miss Yi, Overlord. I beg you, please save the South Continent." "Miss Yi. Overlord." The soldiers were all stunned when they heard this form of address. Soon after, an uproar broke out. All of them couldn't suppress the excitement in their hearts as they had long lost their rationality as they raised their heads and stared at Dmo Xian and Yiqing Luo. "Miss Yi. The one who saved the various academies' elites in Nirvana realm in the blazing flame nest and saved her own continent, the one who was conferred as a heroine. Three Springs Clan's 7th Miss, Yiqing Luo. Overlord. Is he the legendary Dizun? I heard that. Overlord and heroine Yi are fiancé and fiancé. If they were to appear, they would definitely appear at the same time. So, these two people are really the heroine and overlord." The soldiers were so excited that they almost cheered. Those 10 over soldiers who were sent to save Yiqing Luo and the rest were suddenly enlightened. "I was wondering why Miss Yi looked so familiar. So she is the heroine in the portrait." Yiqing Luo listened to the soldiers' excited discussion. She was embarrassed as she patted Dmo Xian's arm, asking him to put her down. She had no idea when she had become so famous. Under the expectant and worshipful gazes of so many people, she really felt embarrassed to continue acting as her little white lotus, nestling in Dmo Xian's arms. After all, her title was the title of such a rough man. Heroine, hero. Yiqing Luo wiped off her sweat. When both her feet were on the ground, Yiqing Luo straightened her red robe and cleared her throat. "That great general, please get up first." The general's eyes were resolute as he clenched his fists and said, "I beg Lady Yi and Lord Dizun to help the West Continent." Yiqing Luo sighed and with a wave of her sleeves, an invisible profound energy stirred up a breeze, forcefully, supporting the great general up. "Since we're here, it means that we're willing to help South Water Continent." The general's eyes reddened and he gripped his weapon tightly. Since Lady Yi and Lord Dizun are willing to help, South Tide Continent definitely has hope. Definitely, he had persisted for the past few days. Seeing the brothers around him getting fewer and fewer. The more the general persevered, the more despair he felt. Chapter 3106. He recalled that the sect master of the Gufeng sect had said that as long as they could hold on for a few days, the imperial palace would send people over to help. He waited and waited. Finally, he waited for them. "Don't put too much hope in us." Yiqing Luo looked at the grand general whose eyes were turning red as her lips curled upwards and gave a faint smile. "But, we will try our best." Thank you, Imperial Palace, for being willing to lend a helping hand." I, Chow, can't thank you enough. After this matter is over, I am willing to do anything for the Imperial Palace to repay the Imperial Palace for saving my life." The general knelt on the ground once again, and his voice was sonorous and powerful. The soldiers also cupped their fists and knelt on one knee, saying in unison, "Thank you, Imperial Palace, for lending a hand." Yiqing Luo raised her hand and waved, indicating for them to get up. "There's no need for you to thank the Imperial Palace, and there's no need for the great general to work like a cow or horse to repay you. The reason why the Emperor Palace acted was because they had reached an agreement with your sect master." "A deal?" The general was taken aback. He couldn't figure out what kind of deal it was that could move the Imperial Palace and make the Dizun personally take action. Yiqing Luo smiled lightly. "Yes, this is the deal between the Imperial Palace and Gu Feng Sect's patriarch. No matter what your motive is, the fact that the Imperial Palace is willing to lend a hand at this critical moment is the benefactor of our Wind Valley sect," the general said solemnly. The soldiers said in unison, "That's right. Thank you, Imperial Palace, for lending a helping hand. TSK. I was wondering why you bastards suddenly became so brave. It turns out that help has arrived." Suddenly, a mocking voice sounded from below the city. Suddenly, a huge pressure surged in the surroundings. When the soldiers, who were still rejoicing, heard this voice, their expressions immediately darkened. The general suddenly stood up from the ground. His hand that was holding his weapon trembled continuously. His muscles were tense as if he was suppressing some sort of emotion. Yiqing Luo narrowed her eyes slightly as she held on to Dmo Xian's arm and walked to the front of the city. Unknowingly, hundreds of gigantic magical beasts had surrounded them. There were also disciples dressed in the uniform of the Palace of Darkness, as well as stiff and expressionless corpses. Yiqing Luo surveyed the surroundings. He estimated that there were about 100 disciples from the Palace of Darkness. There were nearly 50 undead puppets. But, he could tell, these nearly 50 undead corpse puppets were not the half-finished products that he had seen for the first time. Instead, it was a defective product from when the Fox Saint technique had led them to invade the Miao tribe. Defective products were much easier to deal with than semi-finished products. At the very least, in terms of mental strength, the three guardians, Ayu, Ale, and Ah Feng, were stronger than defective goods. Therefore, they didn't need any special weapons to kill those undead corpse puppets. Yiqing Luo's gaze swept around as she was thinking of countermeasures. His line of sight suddenly locked onto a figure. When he saw the man's face clearly, Yiqing Luo's expression congealed. "It's you." That person was dressed in a navy blue brocade robe. He was a middle-aged man in his 30s or 40s. He was very handsome and had the charm of a playboy. He stood in the middle of the Palace of Gloomy Darkness. His posture was relaxed, and there was even a smirk at the corner of his mouth. Yiqing Luo had met this person before. However, he had only seen it once. He didn't have a deep impression of her. The reason why she remembered him, or was it because of a certain someone? "Student Yiqing Luo, I didn't expect you to still remember me." That man laughed softly. "It's my honor." Chapter 3107. Yiqing Luo's face was full of ridicule. The dignified Elephant Saint technique has now become a scapegoat for the Palace of Darkness. Elephant Saint technique's expression changed slightly, but his lips quickly curled into a playboy smile. After all, student Yiqing Luo was so ruthless towards the dark forces. If the dark forces wanted to survive, they could only seek a backer. He paused for a moment and chuckled. "Everyone wants to live. The dark forces are no exception. Taking orders from the Palace of Darkness, working for the Palace of Darkness, becoming a scapegoat for the Palace of Darkness, this kind of ignoble existence really suits your character of hiding in the dark corners." Yiqing Luo ridiculed them without any restraint. Xiangxing Fa clicked his tongue as he stroked his chin. "I've always heard my companions talk about how sharp your tongue is and how powerful you are. Today I've met you, you indeed live up to your reputation. No wonder you're the one who caused the dark forces to be unable to make a comeback, student Yi Qing Luo. This sarcastic emphasis made Yi Qing Luo extremely unhappy when she heard it. Student Yi Qing Luo, I'm very curious. How did you know my identity? Elephant Saint Technique raised his brows. All along, it's always old wolf that fellow showing his face outside, you should have never seen me before. Because of Si Yen Mu. Yi Qing Luo squinted her eyes. You think you've concealed it very well, but Si Yen Mu's profound yin qi can't be concealed. Elephant Saint Technique clapped his hands. Not only do you know my identity, you also know about my relationship with Mu Mu. Not bad, not bad. You're indeed smart. I'm not interested in your relationship. Yi Qing Luo's expression was indifferent. That's right, this is all in the past. Elephant Saint Technique nodded in agreement. This is not the Heavenly Academy, I'm not the Dark Forces Saint Technique, I'm now just a lackey of the Palace of Darkness. I have to follow the mission assigned by the Palace of Darkness. Yi Qing Luo's brows knitted tightly, her squinted eyes were suffused with a faint chill. This Elephant Saint Technique and Wolf Saint Technique were completely different types of people. If it was Wolf Saint Technique. Wolf Saint Technique was already enraged by her sarcastic words earlier. But, not only was Elephant Saint Technique still in a peaceful mood, he could even laugh at himself calmly. It could be seen that his psychological quality was extremely strong. Such a person was even more difficult to deal with. Student Yi Qing Luo, I didn't expect that. You would actually help South Water Continent. Xiangxing Fa looked curiously at the general standing beside Yi Qing Luo. Since when has the Imperial Palace been so kind? Yi Qing Luo replied, compared to the Palace of Darkness and you bunch of lackeys, I like the South Continent more, so naturally. I will help the South Continent. Xiangxingfa shook his head helplessly. What a pity. I thought we could take down Valley Wind City today. Looks like we'll have to spend some more time. I really want to continue reminiscing with you, but Valley Wind City has yet to be conquered. I am pressed for time, so I can only slowly reminisce in the future. His words fell. Xiangxingfa pretended to be casual as he smiled. His fingers gently brushed the hair on his forehead. He pretended to be suave and threw a coquettish wink at Yi Qing Luo. Just as she cast a flirtatious glance, Xiangxingfa's frivolous face suddenly turned extremely sinister, and his voice turned gloomy. Attack the city. He gave the order. A sharp and intimidating beast's roar and birds' cries instantly resounded through the entire sky. The Palace of Darkness disciples raised their arms and clamored loudly. Chapter 3108. Damn it. The general's vision fell onto the corpse puppets and his face was filled with shock. Not good. Miss Yi, those monsters, you must be careful. They are all impenetrable by water and fire. When the soldiers saw the corpse puppets, their faces revealed an astonished expression. They weren't willing to boost others' morale and diminish their own prestige. But during this period of time, the corpse puppets had brought them fear and bloodiness, which made their bodies instinctively produce fear. To them, the corpse puppets were their nightmare. As compared to thousands of troops and horses, it was even more terrifying. No worries. Yi Qing Luo narrowed her eyes as she gazed at the magical beasts and Nether Palace's disciples pouncing over, and those stiff but extremely fast corpse puppets. Just help me take care of this friend of mine. Yi Qing Luo glanced sideways as she looked at Zhu Wuxian's direction. Leave the rest to us. The soldiers looked at Zhu Wuxian and looked at the bottom of the city, at the clamoring crowd from Nether Palace. They were slightly hesitant. Those monsters are really scary, totally able to fight against 100. Adding on so many Nether Palace's disciples and flying beasts, the few of you really don't need our help. The general's expression was solemn. "We've already sent out an emergency signal to Gufeng sect and they will immediately send people over to support us. And a few days ago, the disciples from the imperial palace will also rush over." After the general finished his words, he raised his head and looked at Dmo Xian and Yiqing Luo. "Let's face the enemy together and drag the time. As long as the reinforcements rush over, we will definitely be able to defend Valley Wind City. You've been fighting for such a long time and your stamina can't keep up. Even if you force yourself to fight, you're merely using your own life to drag that short moment of time." Yiqing Luo's eyes were calm as she fixed her gaze on the general. "I believe Grand General also doesn't want to see your own brothers sacrificing themselves in vain." The general's expression sunk as he clenched his fists tightly. "But..." "No buts." Yiqing Luo shot her vision towards the bottom of the city, at the magical beasts which had already started to attack Valley Wind City. "Help me take care of that friend of mine, that's the best repayment." Yiqing Luo left this sentence behind. With a leap, she was already on top of the city wall. With a flick of her palm, a devouring flame fan appeared at her fingertips. Then, she flew down. Her red robe was burning with the most brilliant light. With a flick of her wrist, the feather fan opened up, and an endless amount of profound energy gathered on the feather fan, transforming into numerous wind blades that slashed downwards. That wind blade was stained with this seductive red glow. They were like sharp blades that cut through everything around them. Wherever the wind blades went, the burly and strong magical beasts fell to the ground one by one without any warning. It even crushed many disciples of the Palace of Darkness to death. The magical beast collapsed. The wind blades slashed towards the disciples of the Palace of Darkness. A bloody path was carved out. Screech! Yiqing Luo's feet had just landed at the bottom of the city wall when the sky was filled with a patch of darkness, suddenly charging down in unison. Sharp cries sounded as though it was going to pierce through one's eardrums, as it rang in succession. One after another huge flying beasts flapped their wings, setting off a violent gale, sweeping up the sand on the ground, rolling like clouds as sand and stones flew. Yiqing Luo's brows rose as she calmly looked at the hundreds of flying beasts charging towards her. Chapter 3109. Hundreds of flying beasts were bent on seeking revenge for their companions. Each and every one of them revealed an ominous glint in their eyes as they opened their mouths. These flying beasts' mouths were actually filled with terrifying sharp teeth. And they kept on giving out terrifying sharp cries. The murderous aura filled the sky as it entangled with the flying sand and pebbles. In the haze, the young lady's fiery figure was faintly discernible. The flying beast's speed was extremely fast and the young lady apparently had no intention to evade. The soldiers' eyes were all opened wide as they kept shouting for Yiqing Luo to quickly evade. But their voices had just been shouted out. The sky full of flying beasts was about to close in on Yiqing Luo. Bam! Just as everyone was trembling in fear. Suddenly, a thunderous explosion exploded in the air. A majestic profound energy was like a rolling wave as it surged forward. In an instant, it enveloped the entire battlefield. The moment the hundreds of flying beasts swooped down, Lin Fan's eyes widened. As though they had crashed into something. Each of the flying beasts gave out a sharp ear-piercing cry, which was totally different from the previous threats and warnings. If one listened carefully, it sounded extremely like a cry for help and pain. But in an instant, while the flying beasts were screaming miserably, in the sky, one after another huge flying beasts kept falling. It was totally in an instant. Earlier those hundreds of flying beasts which had charged downwards towards Yiqing Luo, none of them survived. The surrounding flying sand was still lingering and rolling. The air waves were still rolling. But in the haze, everyone could still see clearly. Overlord, Overlord. Everyone's expression congealed instantly. The tall and imposing figure standing in front of Yiqing Luo, wasn't that Dmo Xian? His purple robe was fluttering due to the strong wind, and his jet black hair was also flying along with the wind, which set off that peerless face of his, making him look like a banished immortal. He slowly retracted his right hand. The surrounding profound energy, along with his action, gradually stopped. Without the strong wind waves, it lingered in the air. The surrounding flying sand and pebbles also stopped. Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. Heavens! The overlord only used one hand and annihilated hundreds of flying beasts in minutes. This was simply too powerful. Just one hand. From the looks of it, it seemed as though he didn't use any profound energy at all, and he had easily suppressed those birds. It was simply too cool. Ah Xian. Yiqing Luo's pink lips perked up as she hugged Dmo Xian's arm with one hand. I knew you would block in front of me. Dmo Xian glanced sideways slightly, his eyes filled with gentleness and pampering. You've just recuperated, you can play and enjoy yourself. Don't tire yourself out. Yiqing Luo smiled as she nodded. Don't worry about me, these dregs will at most let me warm up. Dmo Xian rubbed her head affectionately. The two of them looked at each other and smiled warmly. In the eyes of the people from the Palace of Darkness, their sweet talk was blatant disdain and mockery. Yiqing Luo and Dmo Xian didn't intentionally lower their voices when they spoke earlier. Basically, everyone present heard the conversation between the two of them. This blatant disdain and disdainful attitude infuriated the people of Dark Nether Palace. Don't think that just because the Overlord is here, you can win. Valley Wind City will definitely belong to us, Palace of Darkness. Right. We, the people from Palace of Darkness, are not afraid of the Overlord at all. Chapter 31:10. How could they not be afraid of Dmo Xian, this mysterious and powerful existence? But they could only use their words to boost their courage and brainwash themselves. Only in this way could they not escape from stage fright. Most importantly, they still had Nether Palace's secret weapon, so they had nothing to be afraid of. Even if it was the Overlord. In front of Nether Palace's secret weapon, they would definitely be defeated. Nether Palace's disciples' morale had indeed risen greatly amidst their curses. Xiangxing Fa squinted his eyes as he rubbed his chin. He wanted to see what kind of ability this Yiqing Luo, who was mentioned by the other saint technique several times and even the higher-ups in Nether Palace were paying close attention to, had. Yiqing Luo really thought that with the Overlord's support, she could rely on the Overlord to deal with thousands of troops and horses. Ha! So what if the Overlord could really fight 1 against 1,000? He could continue to summon the magical beasts. He could continue to send that bunch of cannon fodder to their deaths. He could continue to make use of the undead puppets to attack Valley Wind City. So what if Dmo Xian was powerful? Facing this kind of continuous war, how long could he last? Xiangxing Fa scoffed lightly as his eyes were filled with disdain. Everyone in Nether Palace laughed when they saw Xiangxing Fa. They understood that their curses and ridicule towards Dmo Xian made leader Xiang extremely happy. Hence they took a deep breath and suppressed the fear towards Dmo Xian as they started cursing once again. What Overlord? The imperial palace that had been established for so many years was overtaken by the Palace of Darkness in just a few months. Ha, you can't even protect the imperial palace that belongs to you, and you still have the nerve to let others call you Lord Dizun. I think you're just a dog. Ah. Nether Palace is the #1 palace in Nirvana Realm, the imperial palace will soon follow that bullshit Overlord. Ah. Overlord. Pooey. Do you really think you're somebody? Ah. Every time the people from the Palace of Darkness who were cursing opened their mouths to say a few words, they would feel a huge impact on their faces. Following that, their faces felt as if they had been slapped hard in the face. They spat out mouthfuls of blood, and even their teeth fell out. Everyone from the palace of gloomy darkness was in so much pain that their eyes were burning. They glared in the direction of the attack. Yi Qing Luo waved the glower flame fan, the coquettish red glow flickered continuously. Every time it flashed, one could clearly see a streak of light darting out. He only headed in the direction of the people from the palace of darkness. Ah! Ah! It hurts! Help! More cries of pain and cries for help rang out. His speed was fast and his strength was ruthless. It caused the rage of the people from the dark abyss palace to extinguish. Yi Qing Luo sneered, her fingertips moved and the glower flame fan opened up. In the air, ripples spread out one after another. Powerful energy gushed out from his body. It charged in the direction of the people from the dark abyss palace like a tidal wave that covered them. Another wave of screams and the sound of tall and burly magical beasts falling to the ground resounded. Yi Qing Luo slowly kept her glower flame fan. She squinted her long and narrow eyes, reflecting an icy cold light. Bit by bit, she looked at the disciples of the Palace of Darkness who were screaming and covering their faces. Her voice was as cold as ice. Chapter 31:11. Yi Qing Luo stood in front of Dmo Xian as she slowly retracted her arm and raised her chin as her face was icy cold. The glower flame fan on her fingertips swayed gently. Everyone from the secluded palace spat out blood as their teeth flew out as they cried out in pain. Then, he looked at the flame-like red light that moved from time to time. They felt that their faces were in even more pain and so were their teeth. Yi Qing Luo's cold eyes swept past that group of people and on seeing their terrified expressions, her pink lips curled upward slightly. Ha! She couldn't even bear to bully her boyfriend. This bunch of trash were even fit to insult her man. You bunch of trash. Why are you afraid of a young lass like her? Attack for me. Kill them. Take down Valley Wind City. Xiangxing Fa saw that the situation had turned around and his face turned green as he gritted his teeth and bellowed. The secluded palace's disciples clenched their weapons tightly as they wanted to charge forward. But the moment they met Yi Qing Luo's smiling gaze and the red profound glow in her hands, their legs turned into jelly. Their faces hurt and their teeth hurt even more. A bunch of trash. Just a young lass taking the chance to sneak an attack and all of you are so scared. Do you still look like secluded palace's disciples? If you don't want to stay in secluded palace and are afraid of death, then scram for me now. Secluded palace doesn't need you bunch of cowardly trash. Xiangxing Fa unleashed his profound energy as his voice echoed throughout the battlefield. Secluded palace's disciples exchanged glances as they tried to find an answer from each other's eyes. The main reason why they joined secluded palace. Not only because secluded palace's benefits were good. Most importantly, it was because secluded palace had the fastest way to raise their profound energy in the shortest time possible. This increase in profound energy was permanent. Towards their thirst for power, how could they bear to leave? Moreover, secluded palace's development was obviously much more awesome than the imperial palace. They followed secluded palace to conquer the world. In the future, they would be the #1 palace's disciples. Just walking on the road would bring along the wind. Most importantly, after they joined secluded palace, they had done so many atrocious things. If he lost the protection of the Abyss Palace, they would definitely be captured by those small powers that the dark secluded palace had wiped out and used as tools to vent their anger. Kill. Capture Valley Wind City. Let the people of the Imperial Palace see the power of our Palace of Gloomy Darkness. Yes. Kill. We have a secret weapon, why should we be afraid of them? She was just a silly little girl. Charge. Capture Valley Wind City and capture the people of the Imperial Palace alive. The Palace of Darkness disciples didn't want to be abandoned by the Palace of Darkness and were anxious to prove themselves. Looking at the human wave tactic which was used once again, as a group of magical beasts and secluded darkness palaces disciples flocked towards them, Yiqing Luo's lips twitched in disdain as she sneered. It just so happens that I'm done warming up. Now I can seriously loosen my muscles and bones. Yiqing Luo twisted her neck, waved her glower flame fan and was about to step forward. All of a sudden, an arm crossed her waist and pulled her into his embrace. Ah Xian, Yiqing Luo fell into his arms and glanced sideways at him. What's the matter? Dmo Xian didn't reply her. Instead he held her waist as his vision shot towards the other corner of the city wall as his voice was deep and calm. How much longer do you guys intend to watch the show for? You guys? Yiqing Luo was stunned. Chapter 31:12. Overlord, can't you let us watch a little longer? Aren't we doing this to let Qing Luo stretch her muscles and bones? Why did you call us out so early? 10 over figures walked out from the corner of the city walls. Those 10 over students were dressed in green and white robes, and on the left chest area, there was an eye-catching Xian word embroidered with gold thread. When Yiqing Luo's vision met them, her eyes instantly lit up. Xiao Yi, Jin Zi, Shadow, Xiao Yu, Ruo Pan, you, why are you all here? These 10 over people in front of her. Weren't they Heavenly Academy, Devil classes students? Ever since she left the West Continent to search for the goo poison for Long Yunzhan. Other than Yan Xiao Yi and Xiao Jin, she had not seen those brothers in Devil class for a long time. Madam Qing Luo. Qing Luo. The few of them in Devil class all rushed forward. Yiqing Luo patted Dmo Xian's hand which was on her waist. Feeling the man intentionally increasing his strength, he tightened his grip on her waist before releasing her. This little act of throwing a tantrum made Yiqing Luo couldn't help but laugh out loud. She held on to Dmo Xian's arm which was about to retract. She turned around, stood on her tiptoes, and planted a soothing kiss on his chin. Following that, she then released Dmo Xian and jogged towards the direction of her brothers. We haven't met for such a long time and Madam Qing Luo is showing off her affection the minute she sees us. Ni Ruopan hugged Yiqing Luo as his tone was filled with excitement and joy. Yiqing Luo smiled as she hugged everyone, her brows were filled with smiles. Those people from secluded palace who were launching their attacks were all stunned on the spot because of the sudden appearance of 10 over people. Until those 10 over people seemed as though they didn't notice the danger in front of them as they were still smiling happily. Everyone from secluded palace then regained their senses. You bunch of brats, are you looking down on our secluded palace? Pft ha ha ha. I thought it was the Imperial Palace's reinforcements. I didn't expect. It's just a bunch of kids who haven't even grown out their hair. Did you think this is a house or a game? You bunch of students who have yet to graduate, running onto the battlefield, are you looking to die? The people of Gloomy Palace and the others were already filled with resentment. These people were obviously the students of the Heavenly Academy. Each of them looked to be about 16 or 17 years old. But just as they were about to attack aggressively, Yi Zichen suddenly stopped, completely ignoring their existence. This was simply looking down on them. The people from Gloomy Palace didn't hesitate and rushed up. Yiqing Luo's brows rose as she looked at the people from secluded Darkness Palace who were charging towards her, as she gave a smile which didn't look like a smile. Brothers, looks like now isn't the time to reminisce about the past. Everyone in Devil class turned their faces towards the front. It's been a long time since we last met. Let me see your recent growth. The corners of Yiqing Luo's lips curled up as she smiled devilishly. As long as I see progress, I will reward you. Reward? Everyone's eyes lit up. Rewards and whatnot, especially Yiqing Luo's reward, that was absolutely helpful to them. As a result, a group of released animals, he had completely released his nature. Howling, he picked up his weapon and rushed forward. Chapter 31:13. Dmo Xian raised his brows as he looked at the young lady's smiling face. His lips curled as he stretched out his hand and held her little hand. Let's go. Dmo Xian and Yiqing Luo also rushed up to join the battle. Ah Feng, Ah Yu and Ah Lei, the three guardians, also rushed up to protect their master. Really don't. The Grand General wanted to persuade Yiqing Luo and the rest to wait for the reinforcements. But in front of him, that group of people were already entangled with the people from Nether Palace. The Grand General's brows creased tightly as he stared anxiously at those 10 over people. His heart was filled with worry and conflict. Initially, there was only the Overlord and the other 5 to go against the thousands of troops from Nether Palace and those 10 over undefeatable undead puppets. They were already very worried. Later on, they added another 10 over people. But those 10 over people were all young lads and young ladies. They looked like 16 to 17 years old. These young lads, could they really hang on till the reinforcements arrived? Move aside. Suddenly an icy cold voice was heard from his back. That voice was like ice as it penetrated into his eardrums. It was so cold that the Grand General shivered. Master, you can't go over. The Grand General turned his head back and saw the red-robed young man walking towards the direction of the battlefield. He remembered Yiqing Luo's instructions as he hurriedly stretched out his hand to stop him. Zhu Wuaxian's brows creased slightly as his eyes were filled with a sliver of anger. Move aside. Master, have you forgotten what Miss Yi said? You can't go over. The Grand General was shocked by his gaze as he broke out in cold sweat, but he still braced himself to stop him. Zhu Wuaxian was preparing to take a step and pass the Grand General. Just when he heard this sentence, his footsteps slowly shifted back. Although the Grand General was adept in leading troops into battles, but to be able to sit in this position and have a bunch of trusted soldiers. Naturally, he wasn't someone who didn't know how to read people's expressions. His gaze shot towards the direction of the battlefield and quickly looked at Zhu Wuaxian as he roughly understood something. He continued to brace himself. Master, Miss Yi asked you to stay here because she's worried about you. If you insist on going over, Miss Yi might be distracted because she's worried about you. On the battlefield, once you're distracted, there's a possibility of getting injured. Zhu Wuaxian's eyes instantly froze. The expression on his face became darker and more terrifying. However, he was no longer in the mood to go back to the battlefield. Instead, he clenched his fists and returned to his previous position. The general wiped the cold sweat off his forehead and heaved a sigh of relief. Zhu Wuaxian's face was cold, and his eyes seemed to be covered in a layer of frost as he stared at the battlefield. It was a figure dressed in a fiery red robe. Beside the young lady, Dmo Xian did not leave her by a single step. Every time he defeated the enemy in front of him, the two of them would look at each other and smile. This scene made Zhu Wuxin feel the sharp pain of his heart being cut by a sharp blade again. He pressed a hand to his heart. The cold eyes that stared at Yiqing Luo's direction became colder and colder. Ever since the end of the God class's training, the brothers of the Devil class had not experienced a hearty battle. Even if he occasionally left the academy to accept missions from mercenary groups, they all felt that they had not enjoyed themselves to the fullest. Now, they were facing a large group of magical beasts, flying beasts, disciples of the Dark Palace. They were like animals that were starving and thirsty. They totally didn't need to care about their lives or anything. Each and every one of them killed to their heart's content. Just 10 over Devil class students, plus 3 Imperial Palace guardians. Chapter 31:14. Not to mention that Dmo Xian and Yiqing Luo had also made their moves. Under the hands of a bunch of animals. Even if the secluded palace had thousands of men and horses, they had all turned into animals to prove their own growth. In Yi-Ching Luo's words, that was leveling up experience. The secluded palace's disciples had their morale plummeted after being brutally beaten by the animals. One by one, they wailed and ran away. How would they dare to fight against that bunch of animals? Xiang Xingfa was also stunned by this scene. No one had expected this. Just a dozen of young men and they were able to carve out a bloody path in the hands of countless beasts and secluded palace's disciples. No. It wasn't just a bloody path. It was a massacre on the secluded palace's side. Xiang Xingfa's expression congealed as his eyes were filled with murderous intent. He glanced at the undead puppets behind him and looked at the flying beasts and magical beasts which had already been killed by 2/3. Xiang Xingfa. Where are you looking at? Suddenly, he heard a young lady's mocking voice. Xiang Xingfa felt a chilly wind rushing towards him. He swiftly took a step back. Bam! His face seemed to have crashed into a barrier. The sound of the crash was extremely crisp. It was like a slap on his face. Tisk, is Holy Art Elephant trying to beg for mercy from me? The young girl beside him laughed mockingly. Xiang Xingfa turned his head and saw the young lady waving her palm and smiling at him. Her eyes were filled with ridicule. Xiang Xingfa covered his face. His expression turned extremely ugly. What could be more shameful than being slapped in the face without even knowing it? The speed of the slap was so fast. And the presence was concealed so well. He didn't even notice that Yi-Ching Luo was already close to him. Xiang Xingfa's gaze was sinister as though he wanted to strangle Yi-Ching Luo to death. Facing such a gaze, Yi-Ching Luo's lips curled upwards as she laughed lightly. Why is Xiang Xingfa showing such a shocked expression? Could it be that the slap just now wasn't for me to slap you, but because you accidentally bumped into my palm? As she said that, she blinked innocently. Her long, curly eyelashes fluttered. This made the young girl's gorgeous face look even more pure and harmless. The look in Xiang Xingfa's eyes grew fiercer. Yi-Ching Luo giggled as she leaned slightly towards his direction. Xiang Xingfa subconsciously took a step back. Yi-Ching Luo smiled even more charmingly. Xiang Xingfa, don't be angry, after all. I am also a headache for those few brothers of yours, you should at least give me some face, don't think that I am so weak. She giggled. The brighter the smile. Xiang Xingfa's face darkened. Yi-Ching Luo was very satisfied with the expression of Saint Law at this moment. She smiled brightly. It was so bright that it almost hurt Sacred Law Elephant's eyes. That was the moment Xiang Xing closed his eyes. Yi-Ching Luo suddenly stretched out her hand and her 5 fingers quickly grabbed Great Elephant Saint Technique's collar. Then, he moved his fingers. A silver thread was released from the ghastly flame fan and quickly wrapped around the Elephant Saint Technique. Xiang Xingfa only felt a piercing pain on his skin as he opened his eyes with a gasp of cold air. He saw that the robe on his arms had been cut by the sharp silver thread. The silver thread, which was as fine as a strand of hair, stuck to his arm. It was a cold touch, mixed with the piercing pain of the silver thread cutting his skin. Chapter 31:15. Don't worry, I will go easy on you. Yi-Ching Luo smiled evilly. I have no choice, to catch the ringleader first, I can only catch you first. Xiang Xingfa's handsome face was extremely gloomy. His eyes turned cold as a cold glint appeared. Originally, I wanted to let you die a little easier. He opened his mouth and his voice was filled with uncontrollable anger and coldness. Since you insist on seeking death, then don't blame me for not knowing how to have tender feelings for the fairer sex. Just as his voice fell, Yi-Ching Luo felt a gust of yin qi bursting out from Xiang Xingfa's body. Immediately, the surrounding air was condensed with a layer of frosty air. Yiqing Luo's pupils widened as she swiftly loosened her grip on Xiangxing Fa. Following that, her figure was like an afterimage as she retreated swiftly. Bam! A deafening explosion was heard from the place where Yiqing Luo was standing earlier. After she stabilized her footsteps, she squinted her eyes as she looked at the lingering qi in the sky. There was a slight change in her expression. Earlier, if she was one step slower, there was a possibility she would have been hit directly on the top of her head by that explosion. But luckily, at the moment she retreated. The glower flame fan swiftly closed up and fastened the silver thread tightly. She retracted the silver thread in her hand, trying to pull Xiangxing Fa back. But this pull, the silver thread was easily pulled over. The other end of the silver thread was empty. Where was Xiangxing Fa? Yiqing Luo's eyelashes fluttered as she quickly kept the silver thread back into the glower flame fan. Then she released her perception as she looked towards the direction of the qi flow alertly. Xiangxing Fa actually broke free from the restraint of her silver thread. She had just kept the silver thread and was still shocked that Xiangxing Fa broke free from the silver thread. Suddenly, her ears twitched sensitively. Her eyes stared intently at the direction of Xiangxing Fa. Why did it seem like she heard a very messy sound? And it was mixed with an extremely strong murderous intent. And the yin qi was getting heavier and heavier, and a very pungent and unpleasant smell. What was going on? Yiqing Luo, you and your bunch of useless brothers will not be able to return. Xiangxing Fa roared furiously in the midst of the qi flow. The strong qi gradually dissipated. Everything in front of him became much clearer. When Yiqing Luo saw this scene, she finally understood the reason why she had so many strange feelings just now. Dozens of undead puppets stood in front of Xiangxing Fa. Behind Xiangxing Fa were dozens of neatly lined corpse puppets. The pungent smell came from the undead corpse puppets. It smelled like rotting corpses. It also smelled like some kind of potion. The stench was indescribable. An endless amount of yin qi was emitted from the corpse puppet's body. It's a monster, a monster. The Palace of Darkness is going to use monsters, be careful. These people were all monsters. They are all monsters. On the city wall, the soldiers who had been paying attention to the situation shouted at the top of their lungs when they saw the undead corpse puppets surrounding the elephant saint technique. After Yiqing Luo saw those dead corpse puppets, her expression turned grave. From the moment the Palace of Darkness disciples controlled the beasts to attack Valley Wind City, these nearly 50 dead corpse puppets were just standing not far away from Xiangxing Fa, like a decoration of the terracotta army. Apparently, Xiangxing Fa had no intention to control the dead corpse puppets to attack Valley Wind sect right from the start. Chapter 31:16. If right from the start, Xiangxing Fa had let the undead puppets join the battle, the Palace of Darkness's loss might not be that huge. Undead puppets were Palace of Darkness's tools. Xiangxing Fa probably wouldn't be willing to use Palace of Darkness's tools to attack her. Unless these were Palace of Darkness's tools, which affected him. So he didn't let the undead puppets deal with them. Now, he had no choice but to control the undead puppets to protect him. That meant to say, to control the undead puppets, there was a certain price to pay. Yiqing Luo squinted her eyes slightly as she sized up Xiangxing Fa from top to bottom. But no matter how she looked, she couldn't tell what was different about Xiangxing Fa. These are the undead puppets you were talking about? Ni Rupin stared blankly at the stiff corpses that were standing straight and asked in astonishment. After Yen Xiaoyi and Qiao Jin returned to the Heavenly Academy, then they told Devil Class about the Miao Tribe's matter. Towards the undead puppets, Devil classes students felt that it was a novelty. Looks like it's not as powerful as imagined. Lu Xiaoyu tilted her head as she blinked her eyes, staring at those undead puppets. Devil classes students nodded their heads in agreement. Don't let your guard down. Their terror is not in their outer appearance, but they are impenetrable, impervious to fire and water. Even if their 4 limbs are chopped off, they will still be able to continue fighting. Qiao Jin reminded in a deep voice, so, if you meet them, you must be careful. Yes. Devil classes students replied in unison as they concentrated their attention and looked towards the direction of the undead puppets. It's out. It's out. Palace of Darkness's strongest weapon is out. An invincible and all-conquering weapon. Palace of Darkness will definitely win this time round without any pressure. Palace of Darkness's disciples who were still alive saw the undead puppets being activated. The terror and fear on their faces were all replaced by ecstasy. Xiang Xingfa sneered. He opened his arms wide. Insolent laughter. As though he had completely forgotten about the awkwardness of being caught by Yiqing Luo earlier. His sinister eyes stared deadly at Yiqing Luo. The corner of his mouth was still curled up in his symbolic smirk. Yiqing Luo, it's not too late to beg for mercy. His sinister smile was so cold that it made people shiver. Especially those 10 over corpses surrounding him. Upon hearing his voice, all of them started to move in unison towards Yiqing Luo's direction. The dozens of corpse puppets moved in unison, as if they were duplicates. There were no flaws at all. Devil classes 10 over students, after forcing the wave of magical beasts to retreat, speedily crowded towards Yiqing Luo's direction. Because of the corpse puppets. The disciples of Secluded Darkness Palace shouted excitedly. For a while, no one continued to attack. In their eyes. Once the corpse puppets were dispatched. Those little brats who haven't even grown their hair will all become corpses. Qing Luo, what should we do? It's this group of monsters again. Yan Xiaoyi gripped the black sickle blade tightly, her expression solemn. Yiqing Luo's lips curled. Don't panic, let them continue showing off. When they think that they're standing at the peak, let them fall into hell, that's more interesting. You have a way to deal with this group of monsters? Qiao Jin understood the meaning in her words. Yan Xiaoyi's eyes shone. That's right, isn't the Overlord able to hang this group of monsters up in minutes? If he makes a move, there's basically no problem. Chapter 31:17. What? Us? Yan Xiaoyi's eyes widened as she suddenly took a step back. You must be joking. How could we possibly be that bunch of monsters' opponents? The 10 over devil class students looked at the corpse puppets and then looked at Yiqing Luo. After hesitating for a moment, Lu Xiaoyu pursed her lips and opened her mouth. I can try. The other 10 over students exchanged glances and immediately looked at Yiqing Luo resolutely. We're willing to go. The few of you haven't seen with your own eyes how powerful the corpse puppets are and don't know what's so perverted about them. Yan Xiaoyi pressed her forehead as her head ached. Our strength totally can't hurt the corpse puppets. She waved her own black sickle blade and added another sentence. Even my black sickle blade has no way to hurt the corpse puppets. Devil class's few people looked at each other again. They clenched their fists tightly, and although their expressions were slightly moved by Yan Xiaoyi's words, but they still licked their lips as they firmly shook their heads. Lu Xiaoyu held Yan Xiaoyi's hand as she gave her a mischievous smile. We indeed don't know how powerful the corpse puppets are, but we believe in Qing Luo. Right, we believe in Qing Luo, madam. Devil classes students all spoke in unison. Yan Xiaoyi was stunned as she immediately shut her eyes. I'm used to Qing Luo being able to create miracles on her own, but I forgot that she can also make the people around her to create miracles. Alright, don't think so much. Qing Luo naturally has her reasons for asking us to go up. Lu Xiaoyu hooked Yan Xiaoyi's shoulder, but, later on, we still need you to take the lead. After all, this is our first time crossing hands with this bunch of monsters. Yan Xiaoyi. Comforting her, was she planning on this? Looking at the 10 over devil classes students bustling with noise and laughter. Yi Qing Luo's lips unknowingly curled into an arc. The feeling of having such a group of brothers by her side was really good. Their unconditional trust in her also made her feel exceptionally warm. She smiled till her eyes were curved as her eyes were filled with warmth. Suddenly, a warm aura enveloped her from behind. Her delicate body was pulled into a broad chest. Yi Qing Luo shut her eyes as she leaned on his body. Ah Xian, the brothers trust me so much, so... Those dead corpses, you can't lay your hands on them. Didn't you ask me to keep a close eye on the corpse puppets? Dmo Xian chuckled beside her ear. Yi Qing Luo turned around and hugged his waist, her little head rubbed against his chest. Previously, I didn't know that all the brothers were here, so I wanted to end the battle quickly. She rubbed against him and raised her little chin, beaming as she looked into Dmo Xian's eyes. I miss the feeling of fighting with my brothers. I can also use them as an experiment. Dmo Xian raised his hand and caressed her hair. I can't do anything to you. His tone was filled with love. Their brotherhood, and the warmth of pink bubbles. It was a blatant slap in the face of the people from the Palace of Darkness. It had come to this. How could they still be in the mood to talk about brotherhood and love? Did they really not put the Palace of Darkness in their eyes? They really didn't understand how powerful their Palace of Darkness's secret weapon was. Xiang Shengfei also felt waves of pain on his face. Chapter 31:18. Heavy Reward. These two words caused an uproar among the Palace of Darkness's disciples. Palace of Darkness's heavy reward was to give them a chance to raise their profound energy quickly. Once they got this heavy reward, in the Palace of Darkness where ability spoke, they would be able to get a good official position. Humans' greed was more important than anything else. In front of greed, fear and terror could be thrown to the back of one's mind. Because, if they won the bet, what was waiting for them was a glorious future. No one was willing to be below others. Everyone wanted to stand out and stand at the highest point. Palace of Darkness's disciples, under the thirst for power, their eyes were burning with a burning battle intent. I will not let you down. Go. Kill this bunch of brats who don't know their place. Palace of Darkness's disciples, on seeing the corpse puppet speedily charging towards Yi Qing Luo and the others' direction, also speedily attacked. In their eyes, Yi Qing Luo and the others had become the stepping stone to raise their ability. Momentarily, the sword light and shadow, magical beasts howled. The corpse puppets swept up a raging yin qi as they charged over. It was a ferocious attack. Under the city wall, those 10 over youngsters stood on the same spot, without any intention to evade. Oh no! Oh no! The great general on the city wall, nervously clutching the long spear in his hand, as he paced around anxiously. Why haven't the reinforcements arrived yet? If something really happens to them, how am I going to answer to Sovereign? How am I going to answer to the Imperial Palace? The great general heard the deafening, rumbling explosion below the city wall. All the muscles in his body tensed up at this moment. He shut his eyes tightly, as his mouth kept mumbling something. However, after the second explosion, Li Tianlan's body trembled. The great general finally couldn't take it anymore, as his eyes widened, as he raised the long spear in his hand. No way. How can I be like a good-for-nothing, holed up here, being protected by a bunch of kids? This is Three Springs City, it's my turf, I should protect it personally. The great general was so anxious that he burst out vulgarities. He dashed towards the city wall. As he was about to jump down, "Brothers, let's protect us." His words were suddenly stuck in his throat. The great general's vision was fixated on the scene below the city wall. He couldn't believe his eyes. "She is a very special woman." Suddenly, the youth's cold voice came from behind. However, there was a hint of amusement in his voice. "Don't look at her like you look at an ordinary person. As long as she says it, she'll definitely be able to do it," the young man continued. The general turned around in a daze. He looked at Zhu Wuxin, who had a cold expression and a frosty look on his face. Zhu Wuxin's gaze was fixed on the beautiful figure below the city wall. There was an obvious tenderness in her eyes. The general turned his head in a daze and looked down at the city wall again. He had to acknowledge Zhu Wuxin's words. Really, one couldn't use ordinary people's eyes to look at Yiqing Luo. Perhaps, relying on these kids, Goofing City could really be saved. Below the city wall, the disciples of the Palace of Darkness and the monsters seemed to be blocked by an invisible wall. They had no way to get within 5 steps of Yiqing Luo and the others. Each time the Dark Nether Palace disciples or the corpses and puppets wanted to charge over, they would be bounced back by the invisible wall. Chapter 31:19. The secluded palace's disciples who were repelled were dismembered into pieces, leaving only splattering blood on the ground. As for the corpse puppets, in the shortest time possible, they attacked once again with their broken bodies. But no matter how they charged over, that invisible wall had surrounded Yiqing Luo and the others from all directions, tightly and solidly. After 2 waves of attacks, Xiangxing Fa knew that this was a futile effort, letting that bunch of trash from the secluded palace die in vain. He raised his hand and stopped the 3rd wave of attacks from the secluded palace's disciples. His face was still as suave as before, but the deep meaning in his eyes was filled with a sinister and treacherous glint. His eyes were fixed on the golden boy and jade girl who were hugging each other. "What? Overlord, are you afraid of our secluded palace's secret weapon?" Yiqing Luo's brows rose as her lips curled evilly. "Secret weapon? It can't even break my Xian's barrier, how can it be called a secret weapon?" Conjuring a barrier requires a huge amount of mental power. Xiangxing Fa's face was gloomy as he spoke in a sinister tone. "We can take a good look to see if the Overlord's mental power is higher or if our secluded palace's secret weapon has more endurance." Following that, he waved his arm. Secluded palace's disciples retreat, the corpse puppets continue to attack. Hearing Xiangxing Fa's words, Yiqing Luo's expression had a slight change. Her lips were curled into a smile, but a sliver of worry flashed past her eyes. Apparently, Xiangxing Fa's intention was to control the corpse puppets and use them to attack the barrier. No matter how strong Dmo Xian's mental power was, it couldn't be compared to the corpse puppets which didn't know fatigue and couldn't die. When Dmo Xian's mental power was exhausted, Dmo Xian would definitely fall into a short period of weakness. By then, not only could he make use of the corpse puppets to capture the few of them in one fell swoop, at the same time, he could also capture Dmo Xian alive. Xiangxing Fa had a good plan. Yiqing Luo's fingers on Dmo Xian's arm tightened slightly. She couldn't let Xiangxing Fa have his way. Xiangxing Fa's retreat order made the secluded palace's disciples extremely hesitant. Naturally, they were unwilling to retreat. The only way to obtain a handsome reward was to cooperate with the undead corpse puppets and take the heads. If he retreated, the undead puppets broke through the barrier. What if they couldn't make it in time to get the kill? TSK, it's really hard to raise a dog that isn't raised by oneself. Yiqing Luo gave a ridiculing smile. Xiangxing Fa, look at your position in secluded darkness palace, I really feel pity for you. You can't even order these little disciples around. Xiang Xingfa's face turned pale. The expressions of the disciples of the Palace of Darkness turned extremely ugly. No, no. Don't listen to this demonist nonsense. We are absolutely loyal to our captain. Demonist. Don't try to sow discord between us and Captain Elephant. Although that was what the disciples of the Palace of Darkness said, they still squeezed to the front. None of them had the intention to retreat. Xiang Xingfa's face turned even uglier. One more word and this leader will let you break Dmo Xian's barrier. The disciples of the secluded Darkness Palace turned pale with fright. The first 2 waves of disciples who attacked the barrier had all turned into a pool of blood, not even a piece of flesh was left. All of you get back here. Xiang Xingfa bellowed once again. They could hear the rage in Xiang Xingfa's tone. Chapter 31:20. Xiang Xingfa was so infuriated that he couldn't wait to kill Yiqing Luo and the rest. He didn't wait for the secluded palace's disciples to retreat to a safe zone as he directly controlled the puppets and charged over. And at this moment, just as Xiang Xingfa thought that Yiqing Luo and the rest were still hiding in the array barrier. But he saw Yiqing Luo pulling away Dmo Xian's hand on her waist as she took a step forward. The young lady's lips curled upwards, revealing an evil smile which made Xiang Xingfa feel uneasy. What was she trying to do? Why did she look so confident? What was she plotting? Could this array barrier be a smokescreen? Countless guesses flashed through Xiang Xingfa's mind. His heart inexplicably started to beat wildly with unease. Very quickly, Xiang Xingfa got his answer. The young lady's gaze was like a torch as it penetrated through the array barrier and the puppet's obstruction, as it fixed on him. She raised her brows as she gave a faint smile. The glint in her eyes seemed to be mocking his ignorance. Following that, he heard the young lady's sweet voice. "Brothers, I'm very satisfied with your improvement." The young lady smiled faintly. These words were obviously meant for the devil class students behind her. However, her eyes were still fixed on him. Xiang Xingfa felt as though he was entangled by an icy cold poisonous snake. The kind that he couldn't avoid even if he wanted to. "The reward that I promised you, take it well." The moment the young lady finished her words, she suddenly raised her hand. The ring with the red phoenix totem flashed brightly. Over 10 weapons were suspended in the air. Yiqing Luo's palm moved and the weapons quickly moved towards the brothers behind her. Those weapons were knives, swords, whips and spears. These were the weapons that the brothers were used to. They raised their hands and caught the weapons in front of them. Lu Xiaoyu's eyes shone as she waved the long sword in her hand. "This weapon, don't tell me you personally refined it." Ni Ruopan also held the long sword tightly. "Madam Qing Luo personally refined this weapon? I will definitely keep it well." The other students in Devil class also had their eyes sparkling brightly. That look of a crazy fangirl. It made Yiqing Luo's forehead drip with cold sweat. "I didn't refine this." She coughed softly. "It was refined by Tang Beiyuan, the hall master of the Imperial Palace's refining hall. I was just an assistant." Everyone's eyes sparkled as they cupped their fists in Tang Beiyuan's direction. "Thank you, Hall Master Tang." No need, no need. These are all ideas provided by your Qing Luo. As long as it's of help to you, that's good enough." Tang Beiyuan had never been thanked in such a serious manner. She felt a little unnatural and smiled awkwardly. Madam Qing Luo's idea. What kind of help? The few of them scratched their heads in confusion. A good weapon is helpful to all of us. Looking at everyone's puzzled expression, Yiqing Luo smiled lightly and raised her brows. "The help that Bei Yuan mentioned, all of you will know very soon." She looked at Xiang Xingfa and said with a smile, "Xiang Xingfa, you'll find out soon enough." After saying that, she raised her hand and pointed at the undead puppets that had crashed into the barrier. what do you think about these undead puppets? The devil class students looked at each other for a while. Chapter 31:21. They don't have blood. Mo Ying's flat voice rang. Finally met someone who is even more inhuman than me. Although, it was still a flat voice without any fluctuations. But those who understood Mo Ying could hear the excitement in her words. Devil class crowd. What was there to be excited about? That group of monsters that didn't look like humans was their enemy. Could it be? Mo Ying had treated that group of monsters as her companions. Facing everyone's puzzled gazes, Mo Ying looked at them blankly as she spoke in a flat tone, I'm human, they aren't. Phew. That's great. Lu Xiaoyu heaved a sigh of relief. I was really afraid that you would classify yourself as one of them. Mo Ying stared blankly at Lu Xiaoyu. Her empty and lifeless eyes stared at Lu Xiaoyu, causing her hairs to stand on end. She hid behind a devil class student and shrunk back. Stop fooling around. Yan Xiaoyi kept the black sickle blade as she waved the long spear in her hand, trying to feel it. Qing Luo, can these weapons pay those monsters? Yi Qing Luo raised her brows as she smiled but didn't say a word. Ni Ruopan leaned forward, those monsters are really impenetrable, the Overlord's barrier only made them lose their arms and legs. If we directly slash at them, they won't die, right? Yi Qing Luo mysteriously curled her lips as she shot a glance towards the group of dead puppets outside the barrier as she patted Ni Ruopan's shoulder. Won't you know after you try? Ni Ruopan was pushed to the side of the barrier by Yi Qing Luo. Just as the four eyes met with the missing arms and legs, the red blooming flesh and the ghastly white bones of the dead puppets. Ni Ruopan's face turned pale. Me. I go and try. Madam Qing Luo, you have too much confidence in me. Just such a bloody scene and you're so scared. Then in future, how are you going to follow me to the battlefield? Yi Qing Luo didn't continue to force her as her lips curled up slightly, giving a calm and indifferent smile. Ni Ruopan's petite body stiffened. Yi Qing Luo continued to smile. Didn't you say, you will believe me? Ni Ruopan's 5 fingers tightly gripped the weapon in her hand. His pale face slowly regained its color. She pursed her slightly pale lips tightly. Right, I trust Madam Qing Luo. His words fell. Ni Ruopan took a deep breath and walked out of the barrier. There was no hesitation in her footsteps. Outside the barrier, Sacred Elephant couldn't help but frown. Yi Qing Luo's one sentence actually had such a huge impact. It was as if it had given the seemingly weak and cowardly little girl great courage. It was as if the little girl had forgotten about the bloody, disgusting, and terrifying corpse puppets. How could a young girl like her influence the people around her so easily? What kind of magic was this? There was no time to think. Ni Ruopan resolutely walked out of the barrier. The expression on Ni Ruopan's face was firm, and she was not afraid at all. A cold gleam flashed across Xiang Xingfa's eyes as he ordered, go. Tear her to pieces. You believe in Yi Qing Luo. Trusting Yi Qing Luo unconditionally. He wanted to destroy the faith of these people. To let them see with their own eyes how Yi Qing Luo personally pushed her companions who trusted her to death. The corpse puppets received the order. They immediately gave up on charging against the barrier and quickly turned their bodies, rushing towards Ni Ruopan's direction. The corpse puppets which had lost their arms and legs, although there wasn't a drop of blood on them. Chapter 31:22. Ni Ruopan frowned tightly as the expression on her face turned strange. This stench of blood was not an ordinary kind of pungent smell. Especially when faced with so many dismembered corpses pouncing towards her. Ni Ruopan felt her stomach churning. Ruopan! Ruopan! Lu Xiaoyu and the rest saw Ni Ruopan's pale face and were shocked as they cried out Ni Ruopan's name. They stood in the array barrier, and when they saw this scene, they felt their scalps go numb as they felt extremely disgusted. Not to mention Ni Ruopan, who was in close proximity with that group of monsters. Lu Xiaoyu worriedly shifted her gaze to Yiqing Luo as she hugged her arm and was about to speak. But she saw Yiqing Luo's lips curled up slightly. That arc was extremely devilish. Inexplicably, it calmed down Lu Xiaoyu's worries and panic. Yiqing Luo raised her brows as her voice was calm and steady. Raise the sword in your hand and slash forward, displaying the first form of the 15 styles of flowing cloud storm. Yiqing Luo's voice was like a clear spring, flowing into Ni Ruopan's heart. It made Ni Ruopan's flustered and frightened heart immediately calm down. Her body instinctively started to move according to Yiqing Luo's words. The long sword danced and the sword waves followed the profound waves, one round after another, creating ripples. The sword body turned. The sword light floated. Those corpses which had already pounced in front of Ni Ruopan were forced to retreat several steps by this sword light. And making use of this gap, Ni Ruopan's figure moved. The long sword in her hand was like the floating clouds and flowing water, drawing out the sword waves. Following that, it turned into a gust of wind, speedily attacking the enemies in front. Swish swish swish, the sword shadows flickered. Dong dong dong. Following that, it was the sound of a heavy object falling onto the ground. Everyone was shocked by the scene in front of them. Those 7 to 8 corpses which surrounded Ni Ruopan were all slashed by the sword light and their limbs were separated as they fell onto the ground. Of course, this wasn't the most shocking thing. What was shocking was, this time, those corpses which fell onto the ground didn't get up again. They were like pieces of soulless puppets which lost control and didn't move at all. Xiang Xingfa's face turned pale. He took a few steps forward and glared at the 7 or 8 corpse puppets on the ground. He clenched his fists and shouted, "All of you, get up." During the conversation, Xiang Xingfa's clenched fist emitted a gust of yin qi. The yin qi quickly darted in the direction of the undead puppet. However, the yin qi lingered above the undead corpse puppet, drifting in a circle. It disappeared into thin air. The undead puppets were still lying on the ground, lifeless. Xiang Xingfa's clenched fists trembled and drooped down. On his face, there was a rare look of panic. How is this possible? Wasn't the secret weapon of Gloomy Palace invulnerability? How could he be killed by that little girl's sword? Am I dreaming? Our secret weapon is obviously invincible and all-conquering. How could he be defeated? I don't believe it, I don't believe it. The disciples of Abyss Palace stared at this scene with their mouths agape. Following that, each of them hugged their heads and brainwashed themselves. Facing the shock of the people of Abyss Palace, as well as the fangirls of the students of Devil class who were shocked and in awe. Chapter 31-23. The students of the Devil class opened their bright and sparkling eyes, as their mouths gave out joyful shouts. One by one, they rushed out of the spirit formation with their weapons in hand. When the last person left the spirit formation, Yiqing Luo asked Dmo Xian to remove the enchantment. She held on to Dmo Xian's palm as her brows curved into crescents. "We've agreed on this, you're not allowed to lay a hand on these corpse puppets." Dmo Xian shook his head helplessly. His eyes were filled with love and helplessness, almost drowning in his warmth. Yiqing Luo's brows rose as she tugged Dmo Xian's hand, giving a mischievous and ridiculing look as she swept past those dumbstruck secluded palace disciples. She said, "As for the other humans, birds, and magical beasts, I'll leave them to you." Her voice wasn't low. Those from the dark nether palace could hear it clearly. The expressions of the disciples of the Dark Nether Palace quickly changed from shock to shock and fear. They abruptly raised their heads and stared fearfully at Dmo Xian's direction. Yiqing Luo smiled sweetly at them, but her words were directed at Dmo Xian. Xian, if today you kill more enemies than me, I will give you a reward. Dmo Xian's long and narrow peach blossom eyes narrowed. This trick, just coax those brothers of yours. Yiqing Luo blinked her quick-witted eyes as she put on an innocent expression, tilting her head as she laughed softly. Don't tell me, Xian doesn't want my reward? Dmo Xian's eyes dimmed as his large palm suddenly clasped Yiqing Luo's little hand. His slender fingers gently scratched the center of her palm. That itchy touch made Yiqing Luo's petite body shudder suddenly. Instinctively, he wanted to retract his hand. But when she looked at the man's eyes, they were as bright as obsidian, but as deep as the sea, dark and gloomy as if they were hiding some kind of shocking deep meaning. Yiqing Luo's heart thumped as it pounded fiercely. Her charming eyes also unconsciously wanted to shift her gaze away. Dmo Xian released her hand. Without waiting for her to speak again. The man had already turned into a blur, disappearing in front of her. In the air, the man's elegant sandalwood scent seemed to be lingering around her. Ah! Suddenly, a shrill and miserable cry resounded from nearby. Yiqing Luo looked towards the direction of the voice. An afterimage moved between the disciples of the Palace of Darkness at the speed of light. Everywhere it went, it would flick away wave after wave of dark secluded palace disciples and those demon beasts controlled by the Swanee, causing them to fall to the ground. That afterimage flew past. Yiqing Luo could vaguely discern it. It was a purple figure. It was Xian. Yiqing Luo's eyes were tainted with a smile. It seemed that Xian cared a lot about the reward she mentioned. In order not to lose to Xian, she also needed to work hard. Yiqing Luo took out a specially refined long sword from the profound phoenix ring and weighed it in her hand. Then, he leapt up and started fighting with his brothers. Weapons for the brothers of devil class. In the past 3 days, Shi and Tang Beiyuan had extracted Dark Yin's psychic power from the Hall of Artifact to forge weapons. Because old man Tsang wasn't here. She wasn't too proficient in controlling the Azure Dew bracelet. She only tried to extract a little bit of Dark Yin's psychic power. The weapons that were manufactured were only 50 over pieces. It was more than enough to deal with these defective undead corpse puppets. But if it was those semi-finished products or finished products which she had seen previously, these weapons could at most delay the speed of the corpses. Chapter 31-24. But from the looks of it, Elephant Saint technique seemed to only be able to control these defective undead puppets. Hence, in a short span of 1 hour. On this battlefield, the only ones who could stand were the members of Devil class and the 2 gigantic magical beasts. In addition to that, Elephant Saint technique. On the battlefield, there were corpses everywhere, as fresh blood stained the ground red. No matter how one looked at it, it was a ghastly sight. The brothers of Devil class, after going through this bloody battle, all revealed a tired expression on their faces. After all, they were only 10 over people. Whereas the other party, including the flying beasts and land beasts, had at least 1,000 of them. No matter how they were beaten. In terms of stamina, they couldn't keep up. The excitement from before had completely turned into exhaustion. They were covered in blood from head to toe. They had their own. There were also secluded palace disciples, magical beasts. They stood weakly behind Yiqing Luo, panting heavily, as they passed a medicine bottle to each other. This was the enhanced version of the elemental energy pills which Baiming Lulu specially prepared for them. It could replenish their stamina quickly. You've worked hard. Yiqing Luo inserted the long sword in her hand into the ground, as she raised a bright smile and looked at them. You guys are great. The brothers of the devil class all revealed expressions of ecstasy on their faces. To them, there was no encouragement or praise, which could be compared to Yi Qing Luo's recognition of their ability. Yi Qing Luo smiled again. Then her vision looked towards a pale-faced middle-aged man who was standing next to a pile of corpses not too far away. Her lips curled into a smile. Elephant Saint technique, now. Who is the one who will not be able to return? You. You guys. Elephant Saint technique couldn't believe his own eyes. He couldn't believe that the secret weapon which they were so proud of was slashed by those ordinary grade, miraculous grade weapons, to the point where it could no longer be awakened. One must know. Secluded Palace's secret weapon was really impenetrable by water and fire. Even those cultivator family's people, whatever supreme grade weapons they took out, were unable to stop the undead puppets from crawling up again, and continuing to attack. Why? Why were Yi Qing Luo and the others able to deal with the undead puppets which had no weaknesses? All of Elephant Saint Technique's self-confidence, at this moment, collapsed. His face was deathly pale, and his eyes were dark and ruthless. Where was the slightest bit of his previous flirtatious, carefree, and evil smile? Here, let me calculate. Yi Qing Luo tilted her head as her vision kept sweeping past the corpses strewn all over the ground. Following that, he rubbed his chin and raised his head to look at Dmo Xian beside him. Ah Xian, both of us, seems to have killed the same number of people. Equal. Dmo Xian raised his brows, his deep eyes stared at her with a smile yet not a smile. Yi Qing Luo raised her chin up high as she replied in a tsundra manner, if I say it's a tie, it means it's a tie. Dmo Xian gave a low laugh, sounding a little helpless. Not waiting for Yi Qing Luo to speak again, the man's long arm moved and pulled the young lady into his arms. He raised his hand and pinched Yi Qing Luo's chin. He bent down and bit her on the lips. He curled his lips as if he had obtained a satisfactory deal. He compromised with a smile and said, all right, then it's even. Yi Qing Luo continued to act tsundra as she turned her head away. Dmo Xian chuckled, his large palm caressed her hair, his eyes filled with mirth. That kind of doting attitude. It continued to dazzle everyone's titanium alloy dog eyes. Not far away, Elephant Saint Technique's face was gloomy as he looked at the scene in front of him. Taking advantage of the fact that the two of them were being sweet. Chapter 31-25. Everyone in Devil class was in the midst of the excitement of victory, but also physical and mental exhaustion. No one had noticed Elephant Saint Dharma's actions. But, unfortunately, although Yi Qing Luo was being tsundra with Dmo Xian, her gaze was still fixed on the direction of Elephant Saint Dharma. After noticing Elephant Saint Dharma's actions, her lips curled as she held the long sword which was inserted into the ground and raised a sword wave. The silver sword ray flashed and a gale rose as it flew towards the direction of Elephant Saint Dharma. Damn it! Xiang Xingfa was forced to stop chanting, and he quickly retreated. Elephant Saint Dharma, don't try to escape with your tricks. Yi Qing Luo raised her long sword again as the silver blade gave off an extremely resplendent glow. Now, the number of people I and Ah Xian have killed is equal, so you're the only one left. Her fingertips moved. The sword ray exploded and the momentum was like a rainbow. If I kill you, I will win, Ah Xian. How can you run away? Just as she finished her words, Yi Qing Luo moved. The long sword in her hand swirled up a sword wave. Elephant Saint Dharma squinted his sinister eyes. He could tell at one glance that Yi Qing Luo's swordplay was not familiar and full of flaws. Did this silly lass really think she was omnipotent? Ha! Just based on this kind of mediocre swordplay. She wanted to capture him. Let's see how he would catch the flaw and capture her. Elephant Saint Dharma sneered as his lips twitched. Just as Yi Ching Luo's long sword carried the majestic sword chi and pierced downwards. He didn't evade as he raised his hand and turned it into a palm wind as he struck towards Yi Ching Luo's flaw. Yi Ching Luo was obviously panicking. She quickly tried to withdraw her long sword. How would Elephant Saint Dharma give her this chance? He leaped up and chased after her. Just as Elephant Saint Dharma was feeling complacent and thought he could capture Yi Ching Luo, that retreating young lady suddenly stopped in her tracks. An extremely shallow but evil smile appeared on her beautiful face. Elephant Saint Dharma's expression changed as he suddenly realized something. Damn it! He was tricked. He quickly concealed his aura and tried to avoid it. But it was too late. The girl suddenly raised the long sword in her hand. The long sword transformed into countless swords that were as thin as wings. Endless xian waves lingered around the long sword and dispersed. Go! Following Yi Ching Luo's command. The countless swords that were as thin as wings rushed towards Elephant Saint technique. Layers upon layers, light and thin, like the drifting clouds in the sky. The violent sword light caused the surrounding air to tremble violently. Visible ripples also appeared in the air. Holy Elephant had nowhere to run, his eyes widened as his face was filled with terror and unresigned hatred. Yi Ching Luo, you despicable villain. He actually pretended that his swordsmanship was not good enough to lower his guard. Then, he would lure him into a trap and finish him off in one strike. Too despicable. Elephant Saint Dharma finally understood it. Why was it that whenever Wolf Saint techniques, Butterfly Saint techniques and the others mentioned Yi Ching Luo, he looked like he was gnashing his teeth in anger? Despicable. Do you have the right to say this word? Yi Ching Luo sneered as a steady stream of profound energy was injected into the long sword. The sword chi became more and more turbulent. Almost at the next moment, it was about to envelop Elephant Saint Dharma and swallow him up completely. Just at this critical moment. Chapter 31:26. The black wind howled, as though a malicious spirit was howling. It brought along a bone-chilling cold intent. In an instant, it enveloped the Elephant Saint technique. The dazzling sword gleam clashed against the black wind. The two forces collided. Strong gales were stirred up in the surroundings, constantly beating against the surroundings. Rumble, a deafening explosion shook the ground. The two forces collided and exploded with a loud bang. The air waves rolled and the wind howled. Yi Ching Luo frowned as she stared at the direction where the strong qi spread. Just as she was about to go forward, a hand hooked onto her waist. Tightly, she was pulled into an embrace. The man hugged her with one hand. The other hand was raised as his sleeves fluttered. The shimmering purple light turned into a ray of flowing light as it scurried forward. But in an instant, the rolling air waves in front of them had already dispersed. In front of them, there was no Elephant Saint technique and that strange black wind. Where are they? What's going on? Where did that black wind come from? How could they possibly escape under our eyes? They definitely haven't gone far, let's chase. Devil Class's students looked at the empty direction in shock as their faces revealed an angry expression. We won't be able to catch up. Yi Ching Luo waved her hand, indicating for them to calm down, that black wind's power is very strong and very strange. So be it if they escaped. To be able to rescue them under Dmo Xian's and hers eyelids. It showed how strange that black wind was. Since that black wind dared to appear so boldly, it must have 100% confidence. Even if they chased after them, it would only be a waste of energy. Moreover, after their brothers had gone through this battle, they were indeed tired. She kept her long sword and looked at Devil Class and the rest, As long as Elephant Saint Technique is in the Palace of Darkness, there will be another chance to cross hands. Now that he has escaped, he can bring the news that we can deal with the corpse puppets back to the Palace of Darkness. At least, for a short period of time, the people from the Palace of Darkness will not dare to act rashly. Time after time of crossing hands. It could be said that the Palace of Darkness was exhausted to the extent of exhaustion. To be able to invade the South Continent under such circumstances. What they relied on was the corpse puppets. Now, the undead corpse puppets had a nemesis. Unless the Palace of Darkness sent those semi-finished undead puppets to test the waters. Otherwise, the Palace of Gloomy Darkness could only choose to bide their time and observe while repairing the corpses and puppets. During this period of time, the people from the Dark Nether Palace probably wouldn't attack again. He would take this opportunity to forge another batch of weapons. Most importantly, Yi Ching Luo was also waiting for Old Man Song's return. Let's go back and rest first. Yi Ching Luo looked at the expressions on everyone's faces. They were still somewhat hesitant as she spoke out with a smile. Following that, she took the lead to hold on to Dmo Xian's arm as they strode towards the open city gates. Everyone in Devil class looked at each other. In the end, he still followed them. Yi Ching Luo raised her little chin as she rested it on Dmo Xian's arm. Ah Xian, since the great Elephant Saint Technique has run away, then the two of us should still be based on the same amount, so the reward that I promised you earlier has to be cancelled. Dmo Xian met her crafty eyes and his thin lips curled up into a smile. In his deep eyes, there was also a bottomless tranquility. Just like there were words in his smile. The group of them walked into the city gates. The deafening cheers caused them to be slightly startled. The soldiers rushed forward excitedly as they hugged the bunch of brothers from Devil class tightly. The brothers from Devil class were first overwhelmed and not used to it. Chapter 31:27. The great general also walked over from the top of the city walls. His eyes were red and he was so agitated that he wanted to hug Yi Ching Luo to express his gratitude and excitement. Among the soldiers, a hug was the highest form of etiquette. However, there was an invisible barrier that stopped him in his tracks. The great general was stunned as he looked at Dmo Xian in a daze. Instantly, he reacted. He scratched his helmet awkwardly and laughed joyfully. I've overstepped my boundaries. Miss Yi, thank you, really thank you. It's you who saved the South Continent, saved all of us. While he was speaking, the usually strong and unyielding great general couldn't help but choked with sobs. He kept on thanking her agitatedly. He simply couldn't believe everything in front of him. As though he was in a dream. This bunch of young lads and young ladies actually had such powerful battle power. The great general who had been on the battlefield for so many years, how could he not tell? These young lads' battle awareness and standard had all gone through special training. They displayed the true meaning of fast, vicious and accurate to the fullest. Moreover, these youngsters were able to deal with those monsters which they had racked their brains but were unable to deal with. No. Not only were they unable to deal with them. Even Gu Feng's sect master and the Imperial Palace's reinforcements had suffered numerous losses in the hands of those monsters. But these 10 young lads had annihilated the enemy's army. Flying beasts and secluded palaces' disciples, those monsters were all killed. Moreover, these 10 people were not in any danger. Looking at them, it was as though they had walked out from a blood pool, covered in blood, but their expressions didn't show any signs of pain. Apparently, they had only suffered some superficial injuries. The West Continent's heroine was indeed worthy of the hero title. Those young lads and young ladies beside her were absolutely not ordinary people. These children could almost be called as talented young lads and young ladies. In future, they would definitely be famous in the Nirvana realm. So many talents. They were actually kept by Yi Qing Luo's side. Moreover, they were extremely loyal. The great general suddenly thought of something. He suddenly widened his eyes as he stammered, These children, don't tell me they are the World Mercenary Group's mercenaries. The World Mercenary Group. They had all heard of the Defiance mercenary group that had soared to the top of the world of mercenary groups in a short period of time. The momentum of their growth was comparable to the current palace of gloomy darkness. It was said that in the first month of the establishment of the regiment, thus, they were able to complete the most difficult and complicated mission. He had successfully infiltrated the Death God castle and returned safely, completing his mission. Later on, it was said that they recruited a group of elite veteran mercenaries. Under the orderly and strict management, everything was done in an orderly manner. In a short period of time, the World Mercenary Group had already developed into a large-scale mercenary group. Although, the World Mercenary Group was currently just a silver plate mercenary group. But their strength was definitely beyond the gold medal. Yi Qing Luo smiled, That's right, they are indeed the World Group's brothers. Speaking of which, it had already been a long time since she returned to the World Group to take a look. However, Holy Pirate, that old man, was here. The World Group would definitely become the #1 mercenary group. When the great general heard this, the expression on his face immediately became extremely excited. Chapter 31:28. Great General. Yi Qing Luo interrupted the great general's agitated words, We're a little tired. May I know if there's any place in the city where we can rest? The great general was stunned but quickly reacted as he scratched his head, I'm so sorry. I'm a boorish man and I don't know how to look at the timing. Yes, although the city had been destroyed by secluded palace, but there's still a place to rest. The place to rest was a well-preserved inn 500 meters away from the city gate. After walking to the inn, Yi Qing Luo's line of sight was placed on the huge mansion which was a few hundred meters away from the inn. There were groups of soldiers standing at the entrance of the huge mansion. Indistinctly, they could hear someone's voice coming from the mansion. That's the safe zone. The refugees all stay there. The great general explained by the side. Yi Qing Luo nodded. Miss Yi, fellow heroes, this way please. The great general stretched out his hand as he led everyone into the inn. The group of people stepped into the inn. Today, everyone can rest here for a night. Tomorrow we'll return to Gufeng sect. Patriarch will definitely treat you with great hospitality. The great general cupped his fists towards everyone as he said respectfully. Hospitality is fine but there's no need for hospitality. Yi Qing Luo smiled, secluded palace has yet to retreat so other matters are not suitable to be handled. Right. The great general smiled embarrassedly as he scratched his head, then you guys rest first. I still have to return to the city gate to keep watch. When the reinforcements arrive, I'll let them rest for a night and not disturb your rest. Reinforcements. Yi Qing Luo squinted her eyes slightly, prepare some medicine. They might be injured. Almost 2 hours had passed. The reinforcements had yet to arrive. Apparently, they were held up by something and were unable to rush over. Which meant that a fierce battle was bound to happen. Although the great general had his doubts, but he didn't voice it out as he nodded in response and left the inn. After the soldiers left, those devil-class students who had been pretending to be serious instantly laid paralyzed on the ground. There were a few who flew towards the kitchen, trying to find something to drink or eat. Before they could move, they suddenly smelled a fragrance as it seeped into their noses. Shortly after, a red figure walked over with a large tray in his hands. The youth's expression was cold like frost, and there was not a trace of warmth in his eyes. His red robe did not make him look beautiful at all. Instead, it made him look even more austere. Food. He spat out 2 words coldly and slapped the tray. The tray landed steadily on the table in the middle of the inn. When the brothers of devil class saw this figure, they were all stunned as they stared with their eyes wide open. Chu Wuxin. Lu Xiaoyu looked at the piping hot and fragrant dishes, then looked at Zhu Wuxin, who had no warmth on his face, and shuddered. Are you sure that this is for us to eat? Zhu Wuxin glanced at her coldly, as if mocking her. Isn't this nonsense? Lu Xiaoyu shuddered again. If it had been anyone else, her words would indeed have been nonsense. But the one who prepared the meal was Zhu Wuxin. Death God Castle Master Zhu Wuaxian. It was a cold and emotionless face paralysis. Surely there wasn't poison in this food, right? If I wanted to kill you, I wouldn't need to poison you. Zhu Wuaxian seemed to have seen through everyone's thoughts as he spat out every single word in an icy cold voice. Chapter 31-29. Devil Class's Crowd. The meaning behind his words. This bunch of them were merely incidental. Did they need to be so honest? Are you eating or not? Seeing the 10 over of them staring at him, Zhu Wuaxian's brows creased impatiently. The 10 over of them moved in unison as their gazes shifted towards the extremely fragrant dishes on the trays as they swallowed a mouthful of saliva. Eat. Want to eat. But really, could they eat? Zhu Wuaxian's impatient cold eyes stared straight at Yiqing Luo, if they don't eat, you finish it yourself. Yiqing Luo expressed that this child's EQ was so low that it made one's hair stand on end. If only she wasn't the person who was pestered by Zhu Wuaxian. She absolutely had a stomach full of words to roast about Zhu Wuaxian's method of wooing girls. She didn't know who was the one who guided him behind the scenes to these messy ways of wooing girls. That person probably didn't know how low Zhu Wuaxian's EQ was. After the big battle, when she was both physically and mentally exhausted. As a warm man, Zhu Wuaxian personally cooked for her, and those brothers of hers, to cook. This action simply caused the favorable impression to go through the roof in minutes. Coupled with that good looks of his, any girl would be smitten by him. Of course, other than her, whose mind was filled with Dmo Xian's looks, was the exception. But unfortunately, Zhu Wuaxian's mouth couldn't spit out any nice words of love. Was he forcing her to eat the food that he personally cooked, or forcing her? Since when did we say that we're not eating? Devil Class's brothers, hindered by Zhu Wuaxian's powerful aura, pouted as they complained softly. Although their voices were soft. But in the spacious and quiet inn's main hall, it was clearly transmitted into everyone's ears. Zhu Wuaxian's cold eyes swept across. Devil Class's brothers shrunk their necks. In their hearts, they were silently thinking, with this attitude, he still wanted to woo their boss. Learn more from the overlord. Looking at the atmosphere in front of them, it was gradually turning stiff. Yiqing Luo took a deep breath and cleared her throat. Young Master Zhu said that this is prepared for everyone, and since everyone is hungry, there's no need to reject it. She pulled Dmo Xian and took the lead to walk to the table in the center, pulling the chair over to sit down. All right, don't just stand there. After you've filled your stomach, just find a room and rest for a while. Devil Class brothers first hesitated for a moment. Then, step by step, he slowly moved to the table. While observing Dmo Xian's expression, he paid attention to Zhu Wuxin's expression. Then, he sat down anxiously. Dmo Xian was unperturbed as he received the wooden chopsticks from Yiqing Luo. His lips curled into a faint arc as he started to eat. The few of them looked at each other. There was another moment of silence. They picked up their wooden chopsticks and started eating. Not far away, Zhu Wuxin's eyes were cold and emotionless as he looked ahead. He started to gorge himself like a refugee fleeing from a famine. His cold and solemn face had a slight change that was hard to detect. If one looked closely, perhaps he could see it. The cold and hard lines on his face softened a little. And his thin lips, unknowingly, curled into an extremely shallow arc. After some time, he seemed to have realized his own changes. His brows creased, as though he was trying to escape from something, as he took quick steps towards the direction of the kitchen, walking over. Chapter 31:30. Yiqing Luo had gone through close to 2 hours of battle and her stamina had been depleted quite a bit. Adding on to that, Zhu Wuxian's culinary skills were indeed not bad. These dishes were all made according to her favorite taste. Yiqing Luo ate very comfortably. As she was eating, her waist suddenly felt itchy. Her petite body shuddered slightly as she dodged to one side. She raised her head from the bowl and stared at the man next to her. "Stop fooling around." Dmo Xian had long put down his chopsticks as he lazily leaned against the back of the chair. One of his hands was still on her waist. Following that stare from her, the man's slender fingers once again squeezed a little harder. His thin lips curled upwards as his narrow peach blossom eyes were filled with a deep glint, unable to see through his thoughts. But Yiqing Luo could obviously feel that a dangerous aura was spreading. Her slender brows creased as she put down her chopsticks. Her little hands silently stretched under the table as she held onto the man's messing around big palm. Following that, she gave him a warning stare. This was the main hall. As long as those devil-class brothers lowered their heads slightly, they would be able to see their hands intertwined under the table. If they were really caught red-handed by the devil-class brothers, she would really have no face to meet these bunch of brothers. Dmo Xian lazily squinted his peach blossom eyes as the young lady's hand, which was held tightly, suddenly exerted force. The young lady's hand was held in his palm. His slender fingers gently tickled the young lady's palm. Yiqing Luo's body shuddered again. "What's the matter?" Lu Xiaoyu, who was sitting opposite, noticed something wrong with Yiqing Luo as she looked at her in puzzlement. Immediately, everyone's gaze turned towards her. Yiqing Luo's petite body stiffened as her lips twitched and finally curled into a smile as she shook her head with a dry smile. "No, nothing." Lu Xiaoyu and the rest stared at Yiqing Luo in puzzlement and looked at the side at the extremely lazy and contented overlord. Following that, all of them retracted their gazes. Overlord and Qing Luo were so close to each other. If Qing Luo felt uncomfortable, Overlord would definitely be the first to discover it. Hence, everyone started to pick up their chopsticks as they continued to struggle. Yiqing Luo tensed up her body and maintained the calm expression on her face. She naturally leaned towards Dmo Xian's direction. "What are you doing? Did you have a good time eating?" Instead of answering, he asked back with a lazy smile on his face. Yiqing Luo, was this the sign of someone getting jealous again? When they started eating, wasn't he very calm and collected? Facing Yiqing Luo's frenzied and helpless body, Dmo Xian smiled without saying a word. However, the fingers of the hand that was holding her little hand started to tickle her palm again. His fingers, which were slightly calloused, rubbed it skillfully. Yiqing Luo only felt goosebumps appearing on her skin. An indescribable feeling pervaded the air. "Right, Qing Luo." Yan Xiaoyi suddenly thought of something and raised her head. Yi said that the class leader's goo poison can be temporarily suppressed for a period of time, but this method can only treat the symptoms and not the root cause. We still have to try our best to cure the goo. Ah, Zhan He. Ah. Yiqing Luo was just about to open her mouth. The man started to intentionally create trouble again. She was so numb that she lost her voice for quite some time. Devil class's brothers' gazes were filled with puzzlement as they looked towards her. Chapter 31-31. He's awake. Lu Xiaoyu nodded. But he still needs to rest for another half a month. Yan Xiaoyi, in this half a month, he has to suppress the goo poison in his body every 3 days. Suppress it once every 3 days. Yi Qing Luo's slender brows creased tightly, then will it affect Zhan's body? Half a month later, if we don't suppress it, will Zhan be controlled by the goo poison again? There will definitely be an impact. Yan Xiaoyi lowered her gaze and sighed out helplessly. After suppressing it within this half a month, the goo poison in Zhan's body will enter a deep slumber for at least the next 3 years. Yi Qing Luo pursed her lips tightly. Perhaps the atmosphere was a little depressing. Dmo Xian did not deliberately tease her. He just gently held her hand, giving her warmth. Qiao Jin saw that Yan Xiaoyi's emotions had also sunk down as he smiled lightly and caressed Yan Xiaoyi's head, immediately raising his head and looking at Yi Qing Luo. Yi said that with your strength, you'll definitely be able to head to the upper realm within 3 years. At that time, bring Zhan along with you to the upper realm. You can look for his aunt and the previous saintess of the Miao tribe. They'll definitely have a way to help you get rid of the goo. Yi Qing Luo nodded. Zi Qing will take good care of the monitor, and Lulu will watch over there. The monitor will be fine. Lu Xiaoyu clenched her fists and said firmly. Yi Qing Luo's charming eyes lifted up slightly as her gaze swept past the few people in front of her and her lips curled into a huge smile. Amen, it will definitely be alright. Alright, I've already told all Luo about the class president. Don't talk about it anymore. Qiao Jin looked at Yi Qing Luo. Director still has a few words for us to pass to you. Dean. Yi Qing Luo was momentarily stunned. But very quickly, he remembered that the current director of the Heavenly Academy was that crazy old man Guiyu. The dean said. Qiao Jin cleared his throat and immediately assumed the posture of old man Guiyu, imitating his tone, little brat. You haven't come back to see me for such a long time. Believe it or not, I'll teach that younger brother of yours to become a heinous student. He paused for a moment, took a deep breath, and continued to imitate. I already guessed that you would definitely help the South Tide continent when it was in danger. It just so happens that the bunch of brats in your class have been nagging about escaping from the academy every day and secretly looking for you. Now, I will send a few students with decent strength to capture you. Over at the South Billow continent, whatever you want to do, just go ahead and do it. With this daddy here to clean up your mess, you don't have to be afraid of anything. Although the first part of his words was very rude and he seemed to be very angry, Lin Mingya did not expect him to be so rude. But behind it, it was obvious that he was worried and concerned about her. She was the one who brought old man Guiyu to this world. The second was an elder who cared for her very much. Cough, cough. After Qiao Jin finished imitating, he coughed again. He patted his chest and recovered his own voice. I've conveyed the message, he also said. After the South Continent's matter is over, he wants us to kidnap you and bring you back to Heavenly Academy. I don't think it's possible to bring him back. Yi Qing Luo smiled. After the South Billow Continent's matter is over, I still have to make a trip to East Billow Continent. Yan Xiaoyi, are you going to leave your heroic deeds in every continent in Nirvana realm? Chapter 31-32. Before collecting the 4 sacred beast pearls, Yi Qing Luo temporarily didn't want to tell all the brothers in Devil class that she was heading to the upper realm. If he told them in advance, it would only make them more worried. After all, the upper realm, for the people of the Nirvana realm, it was a place that people yearned for, but it was also a very dangerous place. Oh right. Lu Xiaoyu suddenly thought of something. Kitty originally wanted to follow along, but The dean and Master Gue Wu seemed to have something to deal with and couldn't leave. So young Master Mo forcefully kept Kitty by his side and stayed in the Heavenly Academy. She blinked her beautiful eyes. Young Master Mo asked me to tell you not to worry about Kitty. He will take good care of Kitty. This Mo, abducting someone is so open and above board. She had such a cute little kitten. She was abducted by him just like that. However, with Kitty Lee's temperament, if she really didn't want to stay by Zomo's side, he would definitely turn the world upside down, and he had to escape no matter what. It could be seen that Kitty Lee was actually reluctant to leave Mo. Yi Qing Luo clicked her tongue. Forget it, a grown girl can't be kept at home. My little kitten has really been abducted by a wild man. Wild man. In the minds of the brothers in Devil class, Zomo's image surfaced. Soon after, they all nodded in agreement. He did look like a wild man. The atmosphere gradually returned to normal. The group chatted as they ate. Over this period of time, everyone's affairs were summarized in a concise manner. This also allowed Yi Qing Luo to understand the recent developments of Devil class in Heavenly Academy. For example, Lu Xiaoyu, Tao Tao, and the others had already joined the Devil class. For example, Lu Xiaoyu found evidence of Si Yanmu colluding with the dark forces in the President's Office of Faculty Council. As a result, Si Yanmu was arrested and Lu Xiaoyu replaced him as the new president of the Heavenly Academy. For example, when they were preparing to interrogate Si Yanmu, he was taken away by the people from the dark forces. It further confirmed that Si Yanmu was a member of the dark forces. Because of this, the Si family also suffered. With the cooperation of Monarch and Yi Fengyu, the Si clan was uprooted. And so on and so forth. In the end, the conversation stopped at a student who couldn't hold on and fell asleep against a pillar. Yi Qing Luo then asked everyone to find their own rooms to rest. Silence gradually returned to the whole. Yi Qing Luo yawned and leaned into Dmo Xian's arms, her arms hooked around his neck. Ah Xian, hug. Dmo Xian's eyes drooped, his languid peach blossom eyes twinkled with a devilish glint. He raised his thin lips and looked at the girl with a faint smile. Then, under the girl's charming gaze, he slowly bent down and whispered into her ear, "You know how to please me. This means that you know where you went wrong." This low and hoarse voice had a magnetism that made people sink into it. It hooked Yi Qing Luo's little heart, thumping non-stop. Her body trembled slightly. The more the man enjoyed it. The lips that were right next to her ear parted slightly. His thin lips brushed past her earlobe. Yi Qing Luo's fingers gripped Dmo Xian's robes tightly. "Lil Luo, eating another man's food in front of me, eating it so deliciously. You deserve to be punished." Every word he said was magnetic and mellow. I was really hungry. Yi Qing Luo explained softly. Quibble. Chapter 31-33. Ouch! Yi Qing Luo groaned in pain. This feeling of pain and numbness was so unfamiliar that she couldn't get used to it. She was just about to slide her hand down from Dmo Xian's neck to push him. Suddenly, he heard footsteps approaching. Soon after, a cold voice said, "I'm hungry." His tone was calm. Just by hearing it, he knew who it was. Yi Qing Luo's hand froze on Dmo Xian's neck. She was in a daze for a long time before she regained her senses. Her cheeks suddenly turned red. Holy **T. How could Zhu Wuxin appear at this time so coincidentally? This posture, damn it. No matter how he explained it, he couldn't explain it at all. No matter how one looked at it, it seemed as though she was the one who had hooked her arms around Dmo Xian's neck, acting coquettishly to ask for kisses. Being intimate and loving in private is fun. When they were being intimate, they were seen by others. This was awkward, moreover, it was the kind of awkwardness that couldn't be more awkward. However, Yiqing Luo's heart was filled with curses, but Zhu Wu Axian didn't seem to mind at all. Zhu Wuxin's face was still cold, and there was no warmth in his eyes. He stared at her and repeated word by word, "I'm hungry." Dmo Xian hooked Yiqing Luo's petite figure as he held her in his arms, not letting Zhu Wu Axian see her flush red face. To Dmo Xian, Yiqing Luo's demeanor was like a girl next door. It was enough for him to appreciate it alone. "If you're hungry then go and eat, don't disturb me and Lil Luo's rest." Dmo Xian held Yiqing Luo in his arms as he headed towards the second floor. Zhu Wuxin's figure flashed and blocked in front of the two. He was expressionless as he repeated, "I'm hungry." His icy cold gaze was not directed at Dmo Xian. But he stared straight at Yiqing Luo whose back was facing him. Even though Yiqing Luo's back was facing Zhu Wu Axian, she could feel Zhu Wuxin's ice-cold gaze, which seemed to be covered in frost, piercing her back. In particular, the man who was hugging her had increased his strength. Obviously, this vinegar jar had been knocked over again. In Dmo Xian's arms, Yiqing Luo patted her face, trying hard to restore her complexion back to normal. He then lifted his head up from Dmo Xian's arms and looked at Zhu Wu Axian. "I'm hungry." Seeing Yiqing Luo looking at him, Zhu Wu Axian narrated the story expressionlessly. Yiqing Luo's slender brows creased slightly. "Didn't you prepare quite a lot of food in the kitchen earlier? Why didn't you eat when you're hungry?" "My hand hurts," he answered decisively. "Yiqing Luo, what kind of stupid reason was that? Hand pain. How did he cook when his hands hurt?" "So..." Yiqing Luo dragged out the last word, waiting for Zhu Wu Axian's next sentence. Zhu Wu Axian didn't beat around the bush as he stared straight at Yiqing Luo and spat out two words decisively, "Feed me." This time, Yiqing Luo was really speechless. They had gone one big round. Just for this purpose. He wanted her to feed him. "You can cook, but you can't eat." Wasn't this excuse a little too lame? "I'm hungry." Seeing Yiqing Luo not moving, Zhu Wu Axian's eyes turned even colder. Yiqing Luo, she expressed that she really couldn't feed him. Only when she was extremely hungry, she ate the food that Zhu Wu Axian personally cooked. A certain overlord's vinegar jar had already flipped several jars. If she fed it to Zhu Wuxin, probably she was going to drown in vinegar. She absolutely couldn't feed him. Yiqing Luo cleared her throat. "Master Zhu, I'm really tired. This overlord will feed you." You're tuning into the Journey of the Soul YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.